Week 5, we're doing something called the cam cable panel. Cam cable is a really cool and unusual cable pattern that has your traditional cable crosses here, but then the legs of the cable kind of branch out like this and then form the next leg of the cable and so on. It's really interesting, but there are some unusual abbreviations used in this pattern that maybe you haven't come across. So I'm going to just go over the unusual abbreviations. There are some ones that you're probably familiar with in the first couple of rows, but I'm going to start in the 6th row where we come across the first. Maybe you haven't done this one before. So in 6th row, we start with knit 3. This cable panel is kind of bordered with 3 knit stitches on either side. And then the cable panel is in the middle, which is 20 stitches. Okay, so we've knit 3, then we purl 4. And then the abbreviation that we have is BC. So that is a back cross. So we need our cable needle and we slip this next stitch that's on the left-hand needle onto the cable needle and we leave it at the back of our work. Then we knit the next stitch. And then from our cable needle, we purl that stitch that was on our cable needle. So that is called a BC. The next abbreviation is C5F. So for C5F, we need our cable needle again, and we're going to slip the next 4 stitches that are on our left-hand needle onto the cable needle. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this time we're going to leave it at the front of our work. So just in the front here. Then we're going to purl the next stitch on the left-hand needle. And then we're going to knit the 4 stitches that are on our cable needle. So we just bring the cable needle back and knit those 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is a C5F. Get to the end of the row, we do a knit 2 together, knit 2, KFB, which is knit into the front and the back of the next stitch. You've worked those in a couple of the rows leading up to the 6th, and then P4 and K3. In row 10, we come across the abbreviation 4FC. So I've worked that row until I get to that 4FC. So what that is, we slip our next 3 stitches from the left-hand needle onto our cable needle, leave at the front of the work, purl the next stitch on the left-hand needle, and then we knit those 3 stitches from the cable needle. In the 12th row, we see FC. So I've worked the knit 3 and purl 2, and the next thing I'm supposed to do is FC. So it works very much the same way as the BC works, but we slip the stitch on our left-hand needle into the cable needle and leave it at the front of our work. Purl the next stitch, and then knit that 1 stitch from the cable needle. In the 14th row, we see 3FC. So you guessed it, we need our cable needle. We slip the next 2 stitches from our left-hand needle onto the cable needle, leave it at the front of our work, purl the next stitch on the left-hand needle, and then knit the 2 stitches from the cable needle. You can see now that we've worked a whole bunch of those BCs and FCs where we're just crossing 1 stitch. That's when these little legs are starting to really come out of the cable leg here. It's pretty interesting. It's starting to shake shape. In the 22nd row, it's K3, P7, and then 4 KFC. This abbreviation sounds more daunting than it is. All it is slip your next 3 stitches on your left-hand needle onto the cable needle, leave it at the front of your work, knit the next stitch on your left-hand needle, and then knit those 3 stitches from your cable needle. In the 24th row, I've worked K3, P5, P2 together and knit 1. My next abbreviation is C5F ink. So we cable needle again, slip the next 4 stitches onto the cable needle, leave it at the front of the work. Then we're going to increase 1 stitch in the stitch on our left-hand needle. And we do that by knitting into the front. Whoops, where's my yarn? Knitting into the front and the back of this next stitch. So increase 1 stitch in there, and then knit the 4 stitches from the cable needle. In the last row of the panel pattern repeat is the abbreviation M2P. Now, you've probably made an M1 before, so this is just increasing 2 stitches purl-wise. So it's a little bit different. So I've worked up until I get to that point. So this is where I'm going to M2P. If you can see, between these stitches is the bar that is between this stitch and this stitch. So that's where we're going to work up into. So we pick up this horizontal bar onto our left-hand needle, and we're going to purl twice into that. So we do that by purling into the back of that loop first, keeping that stitch on our needle, and then purling into the front of that stitch. So you've made 2 stitches out of that bar that's lying between your right hand and your left hand needle. There we go. We've worked through the unusual abbreviations that you've come across in these 28 rows of the cam cable panel.